This is Your Own Best Company, a podcast and community for creative people who value and enjoy working alone. Welcome, everybody, to Your Own Best Company. My name is Franklin Taggart. This was my idea. This is a podcast that's designed for people who love working alone. We also have an online Facebook community. It's growing inch by inch, row by row. As you would expect, a group for people who love to work alone to grow. So I'm really delighted today to welcome Brittany Murphy to the show. Brittany is a digital marketing expert, and I met her in a networking mixer a few weeks ago and had a fascinating conversation about SEO in particular, but digital marketing and just the way that it's exploding in every possible direction also came up in our conversation as well. And I thought Brittany would be a great asset to our show today. So welcome, Brittany. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Franklin. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. Distinct. Your company is called One Thing Marketing. Now, I'm curious where you got that name.
Well, that's actually a good question. So surprisingly, it's actually not from Gary Keller's book, The One. We did not steal that. It's actually from the idea that one thing could actually change everything. So it's maybe landing that one client. It's getting found on one podcast. It's all these little things that could add up, and you never know what's that one thing at the end of the day that's just going to change your business dramatically for the better.
Yeah.
The worst, but ideally the better.
Well, as a means of introduction, over the last 7 years, Brittany has created over 300 digital marketing strategies for clients, both locally and nationally. As the marketing director, Brittany focuses on helping business owners get their phones to ring with new clients through optimizing their website and online presence. Through her strategies and her team at One Thing Marketing, they've helped local businesses increase their revenue by an average of 30% every year. Now, another fun tidbit that I'm not going to test her on. Brittany can name all of the U.S. states in alphabetical order without help from Google. And I'm assuming that you're saying that you can do this from memory. Is that correct?
It is the only thing that has stuck in my memory ever since elementary school. It starts with Alabama. That's all I'll say.
I've only known one other person that could do that, and it was my first wife, who was just a brilliant Southern woman. And, just she could rattle them off. She used to spend hours just writing them in order.
Oh, I learned a good trick of it was in a song, and that song will get stuck in my head even as a 30-something still. So I can still say I know all of the states.
Well, tell me what drew you to digital marketing in the beginning.
Great question. I honestly was around doing different things. So I went to school for marketing, mainly retail marketing. I went into retail marketing, not as fun as you would think when you work more than 9 to 5 every holiday, every weekend.
Yeah.
To more of a 9 to 5 job, trying to see what that was like. Better. You got to go to holidays again with your family, but just still not up the alley I was looking for. So I actually found this newer company that had been around for only a few years, looking for someone to really just kind of explode what we were trying to accomplish. And so I met with the owner, Dan Skaggs, and ever since then, 7 years later, we have been really trying to help as many local businesses as possible. And the fun part is that I'm a very extroverted, outgoing person. So it's great to actually find a good mix of, I love the marketing side of what we do, but I also get to talk to business owners, give them a strategy, and really just kind of help open their eyes to all the different things they could be doing that, maybe you can assign out, maybe you work with us, or maybe you do yourselves, but there's just a lot of things out there and people don't know what they don't know. And that's kind of what I like to help educate on.
Well, it's really marketing is such an explosive field. And like I said, it goes in every direction right now. I'm a little bit curious about your own, what was the appeal to you with marketing?
I think the biggest thing is you got to have some creativity with it, but it's not pure creativity, really. You don't have to recreate the wheel, is how I phrase it. I like that. I like having basically a good circumference, a good structure of what I need to be doing. And then how can I improve this? How can I make this better? Kind of going on with it. So that's really what I love is there's an art and a science when it comes to marketing. And the science is fun, The art's obviously kind of sometimes more fun for some people, but the combination of how those two things work together, I think that's where it really makes or breaks companies. If they can devote a little bit of time to that, understanding what they're trying to do, that's this other appeal to marketing for me, is when I can actually see people who have made those changes and the results that they're getting with it. That's kind of the eye opener for me as well. Is like, wow, this is really making a difference in someone's life, not just because we're making fun designs, but we're actually helping them book people, get people to calling them, and really change the landscape of their business. So I would say from beginning 7 years ago, what I was doing, I was helping design websites. I was doing a lot of that fun stuff, but now I'm really kind of more of the overarching, looking at the strategy and just kind of making sure everyone's working well. And from that side point, I can see 7 years later the results, people who've been with us and what they're getting from it. And it's a fun thing at the end of the day to really kind of pat yourself on the back and feel very excited for them as well throughout the process.
That's exciting to see those numbers change too, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's what you probably hope for when your clients talk to you, is they're actually making those changes and then they're documenting it to really see the difference between the two.
Yeah, I want them to go from sad to happy. That's my big deal.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, digital marketing. There are 150 different directions you could go with it. Can you talk a little bit about your own specialties in that area? And what is it about those specialty areas that draws you?
Yeah. So the easiest way to kind of start breaking this down is I tell everybody there's basically like 200 different ranking factors when it comes to SEO and ranking with Google. So what we kind of specialize in are the main priority areas in which you need to start with. And then obviously are experts to go further with it, but kind of everybody needs to know at the very beginning of this, the specialty things to focus on is definitely your website. I mean, obviously with marketing, we know that's our online pamphlet of what we do, but that's where you're trying to convert anybody who knows about you, whether they have just found out about you or knew about you already, enough information for them to actually call or submit a contact form and kind of go through there. So we always focus on the website, making sure it converts well, but the actual content we have on those websites is where that SEO comes from. That's where we call that content marketing side. And when you really dig down into it, at the end of the day, the biggest things are making sure your website's optimized correctly. It's broken up and laid out correctly. We focus on the local side of what you do. And then ongoing wise, it's really all about creating more content and creating more links and more content and more links and more content and more links. That's really what Google is grading all of us on at the end of the day, is how much good resource we're putting out there for their visitors who are typing in these different keywords to hopefully find your article when it comes down to the end of the day.
Okay. So SEO is the big thing where you spend the majority of your time.
Yes.
Now, one of the things that's really interesting with SEO is that you hear a lot of rumors about SEO that float around from time to time. And one of the most common rumors that I hear frequently, especially from people who are doing web design, is that they don't feel like that SEO is as important as it once was. Do you agree with that?
Not really.
I didn't think
because
so.
I sell SEO at all. It's really just because what we see, and maybe a better way that I would say phrase it, it's not lowered its importance. It's just increased its difficulty to achieve it. Yeah. So if you're going to look at all the things you could do within the day, SEO might not be the best course of action for you just because of how much work you might need to do within that industry, if that makes more sense. So, I always tell anybody, if you're a lawyer, if you are in anything that's kind of like where you see billboards all the time for these industries, SEO is probably going to be harder for those. I mean, you can't drive down any highway without seeing 5 attorney billboards. So we know, like, for instance, that market is very saturated. Yeah. So I would suggest a lot of people look at alternatives. SEO should be used in conjunction because you should slowly build up this foundation, because that's what Google does reward, is you being consistent and adding more and more content to your site. But it may just need to be a fraction. So maybe that's only 50% or 20% of what your marketing whole plan is, just because it can be so intense with it. But 99% of the time, Franklin, if your toilet was overflowing this minute and you had no idea how to fix it, what would you do?
I'd call the plumber.
How would you find that plumber?
Google.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to the day, I tell people that it's still something we need to have, because if you are in this situation and you did not know a plumber, you're going to go to Google. So just everybody else is as well. So if you're not there physically when they're ready to call you, then you're going to miss out on that market.
Yeah. And I'll probably do like plumbers near me even.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. And all the different variations around that, that's where the fun part about SEO comes into. So if you're just typing in that, let's just say, so you're in Denver, so plumbers, Denver, Colorado, that might be a very, very hard keyword term because every plumber wants to rank for that.
Yeah.
They could type in other things of how to fix an overflowing toilet. So that's a blog post that gives you the answer, but you might see it because you're typing in overflowing toilet. And that's the thing that pops up. And you're like, oh, I don't want to do this. But the plumber company who had listed the answer for you, their phone number is right there. So you can immediately call them or leave a contact form to get them to actually do it for you. So the way we go about SEO now has really changed dramatically just because of how competitive it can get. And again, you don't need to recreate the wheel. You just need to make it work better for you.
Now, you mentioned as you got started that there are over 200 criteria that Google uses for page ranking and search results. And that's pretty near impossible for any normal human to keep track of.
Yes.
So you've taken some time to kind of distill down into five steps how people can improve their SEO performance. You want to just jump right into that?
Yeah, why not? Let's go ahead. So I'm going to preface this by I could be an information overload. So I will try to go with this as much of an eagle eye view, but listeners, again, there's more things we can kind of answer for you down the road. So again, as I said, anything you do, so even if it's not SEO, but any marketing that you are doing, everyone is going back to your website. This is your storefront. And especially for a lot of people who have products or services, but don't have a storefront, we know how even more important it is to make sure that we show authority in what we're doing on our website as quickly as possible, because the worst thing is that you did all this work to get someone to your website and then they click the back button because they don't think they got to the right website to help them with what they were looking for. So that's one thing to always think about. When it comes out the website, there is an art and a science to it, but the simple ways about it is if you knew nothing about what you did, what things do you want to know? So is your website coming with the benefits for them versus just talking about, the features of what you do? Your clients want to know what makes you different. Why should they choose you? So giving them that information, it's more of a conversion factor, not really for SEO, but something we all need to remember at the end of the day. What is our target audience asking? How do we make that reflect that back on the website? So they do end up calling us because they see us as who they should be talking to. Okay. So another way to organize that website to start with SEO is if either you're a product-based business or a service-based business, this could be B2B and B2C, is you want to think about everything you have. So if we're a service-based business, then we need to break down every service that we have on our website. So do not jam everything together and say that you do all these things. Here's a paragraph about each of them on one page. That is the worst for SEO. We want to break these things down. So products work the exact same way. So unfortunately for my product guys, you usually have a lot more products than there are services. So you still have to use this exact same method. It just kind of gets a little bit more drawn out, but every individual service has just one page about it. So each of these pages are actually what Google's going to find when people are typing in those keywords. Those pages are what bring the relevance in for Google to list your result and then have people click on it afterwards. So for example, let's go back to our plumber just for fun.
Yeah.
So if they're talking about anything related to repairs, that would be what that label is under versus a complete replacement, then they need to have everything about repairs. If they are obviously doing a lot, let's just say for some reason, Colorado, everyone's is making their toilets overflow, then they need a page just to talk about that because that's how big that has become within their services. And they can basically see that people are typing in those words. That's what they're asking about. We have to put this on the page. So the biggest thing I kind of say with that is not only are we breaking down these service pages as much as possible, we're really niching them down. We're making it very easy for that person to find the answer to what they're looking for, which makes them want to call you and talk to you at the end of the day. Hands down, if you are answering that question for them, they are feeling more comfortable in your knowledge of it. So that would be the first one.
So having one page for one product or one service is definitely a yes thing to do. One page per service or product. I love that. I've never actually heard someone come out and say that explicitly, but I've always had kind of a hunch that was the case.
Yes, it's definitely a best practice when it comes down to it, because how Google ranks things is they actually rank pages, not websites. So how powerful that page is and how relevant that page is what helps it show up. So again, back to that example, if your toilet's overflowing, you want to find the answer to it of someone who says they do it immediately. And that's Google's way of rewarding people who have broken down that page to emphasize what that service is and as much information about it. So for those who do break down these pages, do a word count, see how much you have on it. I would recommend minimally 1,500 words if you want to try to rank for this. And the more competitive, it just means we need to do more work. But that is kind of where, when you're looking at your websites, that would be what you basically prioritize the services that you have that you want to start getting more business for. Go back to each of those pages and start to buff those up with as much content, and just think to answer all the questions: who, what, where, when, why, how of that service or product. If you're lacking ideas of what to write, you can do that. You can also type in the keywords. What are your competitors writing?
Yeah.
We need to recreate the wheel. What are they doing? Check out their work and make it better. That's all you got to do.
Now, Brittany, I've got a handful of clients that don't consider themselves very strong writers. What would you recommend for somebody who needs to have that SEO presence on their website, but they don't feel confident in their own writing skills?
Well, I can tell you this: I'm not a writer either.
Yeah.
But you have to do it. So even when COVID hit, I was the one assigned to write COVID marketing ideas for 2020. I'm not a writer, but I had to do it. So, I mean, one side is yes. At the end of the day, we might have imposter syndrome, but you're still the expert at what you do. Yeah. So if you can put it together, hire someone off Upwork to clean it up, hire an editor. You can definitely do those things. If you absolutely don't have time or even want to touch it, then I would definitely say hire someone that can write copy. So you would put all the bullet points of what you'd want them to make sure they cover in it, because again, you make sure that all of your correct information is on these posts, and they can write it for you, and you can just kind of finesse it to make sure it matches what you're looking for. But that'd be a good workaround, because the fact of the end of the day is you're never going to get around content, because honestly, other tips I have are going to be based around that. So if you don't
it's all going to be the content. Yeah.
Yes. And you're going to need to find a resource that's willing to write for you. And that's not too hard in the day either. There's a lot of content writers out there that are freelance now.
For sure. Let's just move on to the next step, and I'll come back with any questions that I have later.
Perfect. So I did kind of get into point 2, and then it's actually for each of those service pages to write that minimally 1,500 words. So I did kind of cram those two together. Sorry.
Okay.
So point number 3, moving on, is actually creating more content. Brittany, no, why? Sorry, guys, but that really is what it comes down to. Content still is king when it comes to that. So what I tell people as well, let's just say that you're in a competitive industry. So let's just say you're an independent lawyer, you're working for yourself, and you have certain services. Well, I just mentioned that's going to be a hard industry. So what we need to do is we need to think different. So the biggest thing to create more content, just the easiest idea, put a little pad beside you, share a little note doc on your computer, but every day start to take note. Anytime someone asks you a question, so a future prospect or a current client, write down the questions they're asking you. And when it gets repeated, put a tally mark beside it. So after a week or 2 weeks, we can actually see, here's all the questions I get asked during the sales process or during the close process or while I'm working with clients. Here's the questions they're asking me in person. Well, the reason I want you to write these down is because if they're asking you, well, we're all shy. We're also asking Google, because that's the one place that won't judge us, and we can clear that history out as much as we want to ask those dumb questions too. So you just got to remember that is if people are asking you questions in person, they're also going to be Googling these answers, because they kind of want to know a little bit sometimes before they work with you. What should I expect? So if they get an answer from you and it's completely off base, they feel like they have a little bit more knowledge. They feel more comfortable with it. So we're basically creating all the FAQs of what you do.
Okay. So those questions need to be in the text itself, right?
Yes. So basically you are that one question. So I can't think of a great example right now, but let's just say there's one question you get asked every single day. What's the process of your service? Let's just say that's the example. So there's literally everything you write about in that one article will answer that question and that question only. So again, this might be something where you're like, I can't write that much word. Like I can't think of how much to write about. It's really a simple question. That's fine. Put that on your FAQ page if you can't think of a lot to put on it. But ideally, that needs to be an extra blog post where you can answer the who, what, why, when, how. And if you can't think of anything else, think of a client example. So maybe you can say, we help this client with this by doing this. You can leave names out. You can make it more generic, but you're still talking about the story. And what that does is, because you're mentioning that story, you're using those keywords. Because you're talking about your service, those naturally, organically are falling within the article as much as possible. So yes, the SEO tricks are that's what you want the URL title to be, the title of the page, the title tag, everything you can put within the back end of the website. You want to make sure that main keyword you're going after is in it. But ideally, because you're just naturally writing these articles to answer the question, it's going to be put in there pretty much as often as possible. So Google can start to see you're answering just that question as thoroughly as possible. And that's just a wash and repeat process afterwards.
All right. So your questions that you start with are the things that are going to help you to include the right keywords in your copy that are going to be showing up then in search results that are related to that question, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And even let's just go back to the lawyer example. So for instance, if they're in your state, so they're in Colorado, they're a lawyer there. Well, they might not they probably don't want to put all of the questions they get asked on their website potentially. That might be somewhere that's a little too personal from what they get.
Yeah.
So another way to go about it is, are there similar things that you're helping people with? So therefore you can ask, is this legal in Colorado? Who's at fault with X in Colorado? So you can kind of think of the situations people are in, and you can create content just around that situation. You're answering that question, and now you're seen as the authority. So a lot of times these FAQs that you're answering can be linked to those service pages. And that is something we want to do, is we're creating more content, and we're making it easy for anyone who visits our website by linking to that other page. So if they come in off that one question and you're mentioning the service that you do to help with that problem, make sure you link that service page in that article so they can actually go to that page, see your process, and get even more comfortable with you during this buying cycle.
Very good, man. That's excellent.
Yeah, it's a long process. That's the hard part I get. And I know, people, we love working by ourselves when we do this, but this can be something that asks for help.
Yeah.
Create a process. These are all different things you can kind of do. So even if you did find someone who can edit for you, or who can write because you just don't have the time or the pleasure to do that, then think of all those questions that you're getting asked and put those. Those are easy topics where you can basically create an agenda after that. So if you could at least do a blog a month, that would be a great minimum place to start at. Just pick those 10, pick your top 12 questions you're asked. And now you have a blog post for each month of the year to answer those questions. And during this time, you're still taking that tally of all the new questions you're getting asked, so you can make sure you're creating content on that as easy as possible.
So this content creation really needs to just be something that you put in your routine and stick with it, right?
Yes, it really is. And honestly, the thing I do with my team is, when in the sales process, if I get asked a question and I'm like, this is the third time I've been asked, there's not a blog post I can send to them, that I'm telling my team, hey, here's the new content we're going to be writing for next month. Because the best part about doing this is this can actually help with your sales cycle. That service page you have about how you do it, why you do it, what cases you help, anything like that. That's actually where if someone reached out to you and they're like, hey, I'm just looking for information. Well, instead of wasting your time for an hour speaking with them, you could give them some good answers. And you say, hey, actually, I have some great resources. Let me send these to you. Let me get your email. So now you're getting contact information from them for supplying that resource. And again, just like this, Franklin, you have a podcast. Other people are doing videos and answering questions that way as well. These are great ways to create even more content. It doesn't only have to be written. Podcasts, interviews, webinars, these are all things that you can get on that you want to save these videos from, put it on your website, transcribe it, and you can optimize it afterwards. So you can answer those questions in a video format as well, because let's not forget, although Google owns YouTube, YouTube's the second biggest search engine out there. So you can use all these different areas to kind of really repurpose all of your information and get more people to find you that way as well.
Well, that leads me to a question. At this point, the search for audio and video is still pretty rudimentary. So we still need to make sure that when we put video and audio types of content on our blogs and on our websites, we still want to make sure that those are supported with text, right?
Yes. So still today, Google can only see what's physically on a site.
Yeah.
So they can't listen in just yet. Everyone's listening in, but won't help us with SEO listening in just yet. So yes, you want to post that on YouTube. You want to transcribe it. You want that on your blog. And ideally, if you can think about it, so even this interview, if you want to put this on your website, Franklin, and optimize for it, each section we talked about, well, break that in the transcription, write a title for it. So now you're making this easy for someone to read, and you can put SEO keywords in there in case I didn't say all of them while speaking. You can still put these keywords into a transcription by breaking down the transcription to read a little bit easier.
Very cool. Great idea.
Yes, it's very fun because honestly, number 4 is you want to get as many links as possible. Now, links, for anyone who doesn't know, it's if you're on another website, so not yours, on someone else's website, and they have that blue hyperlink text where if they click it, they go to your website or any of the pages on your website. That is a link. And for those who want to get a little bit more technical, we want do follow links. So all that means is a little bit of that credit passes over to your website that Google can see. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to build a network of as many quality websites to be linking into our own website. And so this is just called link building. If anyone's heard the term before, it's a sexier part of SEO. I'll put it that way. There's a lot of companies out there who do this. It's also getting to be the craziest portion of SEO. So when I talk about link building, the few things I want to say about it is that please, 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 I've mentioned hiring on Upwork or hiring on Fiverr to find a copywriter. Do not, for the love of God, hire someone to get you links off of these websites. The reason I say that is because there's a lot of black hat stuff out there that you could get a link from and you could lose your website because Google is literally going to smack you on the wrist for doing what you're not supposed to be doing. This is the portion that, this is where we try to do things as organic as possible. Google doesn't have a book on how to rank with SEO. Crazy, right? You would think they would help us out, but they're not there to help us on that side of it. So we have to be very safe with what we do. Yeah. Anyone who's doing this on their own, you want to be safe as well. Now, a good way is if you're doing any type of networking, you can go about it that way. That's a really safe, organic way. So let's just say from that number 3, you wrote a great blog post about one issue and it answered all these questions about that one issue. Well, you have referral partners. You have people you network with, most likely. Reach out to them. Say, hey, I created this resource post. It answers A to Z on this issue. I know sometimes you get questions about that. It's not what you do, but it's something you refer me for. Would you mind linking to my article from your website? Now, not everybody will say yes. Not everybody will know how to do this, but this is basically the structure we want to try to go to. So everywhere can honestly give you a link as well. And that's kind of what you want to do when you are marketing yourself, is making sure you have all these entities set up. So your Google My Business is technically a link back to your website. Yahoo, Yelp, Yellow Pages, all these are different. Facebook, YouTube. I mean, all these platforms list your website and they do link back to your site. So what I tell everybody is go through that list of those big guys. If you don't have a platform or a profile set up on these big places, go ahead and get that because all of your competitors already have those links. So we need to do that to catch up. Yeah. After that, start using those resources that you've created to partner with people who would be wanting to share those. So for instance, if you think about it as well, if we're going to go a little bit more local, we could be helping nationally. I mean, you could help clients everywhere, but you still can go about it in the same process where if there's a local chamber of commerce that you're involved with, or again, those referral partners, these are all places you could reach out to begin, because the purpose of this, it's very good content. I want to make sure everyone's clear on that side of it. This is not a blog post we created 500 words and we're just trying to slap it up and hope that people connect to it. This is really good content and resources. So you're trying to reach out to get those links. And these are the ones you want to share on your social platforms. Have a little bit of a tip out there, but link back to those posts so they can see them and you can kind of keep sharing those over and over again. Hopefully that made sense so far.
Yeah, definitely. Now, another thing would be to talk a little bit about, like, if you're reviewing a book or if you're reviewing an author or a program or something like that, what do you think about getting in touch with that author or that program and letting them know that you've put a review on your website and asking them if they would link to it? Is that kosher?
Yeah, you definitely can. So again, when it comes down to it, this is the fun part of being creative. So that's a great example, Franklin. And honestly, it could work the opposite way as well. So let's just say you were an author, someone wrote a review about you. you might ask them to link back to your site if they didn't, or you might ask them to link to a certain page. Yeah. So it might not be anybody you knew about, but you saw it, you saw their website, and you said, hey, do you mind linking to my website since you reviewed me? You can ask for those things. Again, people do not have to say yes. Making a link do follow is not a requirement. People, this is their own websites, they can control them. But a lot of times if you reach out and you ask, people are willing to do it. So for example, I do have my own blogging website, and I have had different people from different health centers actually reach out asking if I could link back to their resource post.
Yeah.
So here's a good example, guys. People asked me to do it. I did. And what I asked back was, hey, I saw on this page, you talked about X. I actually have a blog post that goes even further into what you talked about. Would you mind also linking back to me with this one? So we're picking different pages, but they asked me for a favor. It is 100% okay for me to ask for that favor back to hopefully get that link, because again, we're just trying to build this empire as much as possible. Yeah. And the last thing to remember about links is it only matters for each individual website you get a link from. So let's just say if that person reaches out, about that review on the post, once you get that link from that one website, you don't need to focus on that website anymore. You've got it. Google will not give you any more credit for getting 10 more links from that same website. So you want to find quality ones, and you want to get that one link on it and then moving to the next. And again, if you do any outreach for these places that you'd like that relationship with, because let's just say your Chamber of Commerce has a huge website, it's very powerful, reach out and ask them, hey, I'm trying to grow. I'm creating a lot of content because I see that there's not good information on this. Yeah. If I created something like this, would you mind sharing it? So these are all these different little things you can kind of do networking wise to really get them in. But in the day, it's all about asking. And if you're actually creating really good stuff, people might link to it without you even asking them. That's the fun part. If it's really good content, they want to share this with their listeners and their readers as much as possible too.
Very good. That's a whole lot of stuff right there.
Yes.
Hey, I have a question for you about like post title links. I know that most of the blogging platforms now default to name the links with hyphens in between each word. But I think it might be important for people to understand that if they're not automatically doing that it's a good idea for you to put hyphens in between each word so that the search can see the individual words within the title. Is that right?
That is, definitely. And one thing, if people do have like a WordPress website, that's one of the most popular platforms, and what we recommend everyone be on is if you have like the Yoast plugin, or if you have any SEO plugin, they'll ask you as well what the title tag should be. So not only do we make sure that URL is broken down correctly, like you mentioned, with the keywords in it, you want to make sure that title tag. So the title tag is what someone sees when they type in anything on Google. It's hyperlink is your title tag. So it's very important that it has the correct keywords in it, because it's the #1 on-page SEO factor from Google. But you also want to make sure it's very readable and easy for people to see. So that would be another one, just not making sure the URLs are set up correctly, but look at your title tag. So if you Google yourself, and you can even just Google your website and see what everything says when it pops up. If it's boring, if it doesn't have those keywords in it, because the thing is, it'll automatically default to just saying your website name and your website domain, and then maybe the title of what you have. So you always want to go in and get away from the defaults. Guys, let's just spend that extra 5 minutes and just put those keywords in there and just make it more of a complete sentence. People can kind of understand of what you do. So for instance, if you only do services or products within your city or a certain area, then I'm always going to be geo-targeting that geo-city portion of what you want. So you want to put that city name in there. Yeah. That doesn't have to be in your title if you're not trying to rank for that. But if you need more words in those counts, add different keywords such as that, because that's where your target clients are also looking and putting those keywords to kind of help find you.
Very good. What about, I know that on Blogger, which is the one that I've used for the last 13 years or so, that they automatically uncheck the do follow. So that's something that I have to check every time when I build a link in a blog post. So that's another thing to just kind of watch out for, is to make sure that it's not defaulting to a no follow when you add your link to the page.
Yeah. And if you are linking somewhere that's off of your website, so let's just say you found, if you like wanted to put the CDC's website, you're in health, you want to mention that website, you can make that. And I would honestly recommend making those links not do follow.
Okay.
Reason for that is if all the links, so all the links you want coming into your site, yes, you want do follow. And that's DO follow is what it's called. But links outgoing off your website, if it's not to build a relationship with someone, to help them out also with a link, or if it's not in an internal link to your own page, you actually want to make them not do follow, because if you send links off of your website to someone else's, well, you're giving them the power. So you got to watch who you're giving that to a little bit. But also if you have too many, and kind of just lower the quality of what that page is. So we do kind of want to watch for that stuff where you want everything coming in as much as possible, do follow, and you can watch what you send out to where you don't want to lose that power of the page. So if you did send to your page and someone else's page, yours needs to be do follow, that other page can be no do follow. So you can get the power to your page versus that competitors or friends or whoever's it is.
That's a great tip. Thanks for that one. I can start doing that one this afternoon.
Yeah.
So we've gotten through 4 of your steps. That leaves 1.
Yes. So I'm actually this last step, I want to bring it back into those who want to focus a little bit more locally. And the reason I bring it back this way is because when it comes with SEO, you're going to rank quicker where you're physically located first, and then you expand your outreach that way. So even if you are a business coach that can help anybody in the US, you're most likely still going to get found closer to home first. So a good thing I tell everybody is if we want to go national, we still need to focus on that local side, because if we can gain traction here, we're not only getting more clients, we're getting more traffic, we're gaining more authority quickly to spread ourselves a little bit further down the road as well. So the biggest thing I tell everybody is check your Google My Business.
Yeah.
If you do not have it, go claim it. It's so easy nowadays to get that done, to get that claimed. Google has made it almost, well, COVID made it hard, but they try to make that very easy for everybody. So the reason I actually make it the last point after your website, after all this SEO, is because proximity, so your actual location, is the #1 ranking factor when it comes to local marketing. So we can't change that all the time. So if we can't change that, the second thing that actually ranks your Google My Business is how well your website is optimized. So if your website ranks well, your Google My Business actually uses that optimization and they rank that higher as well. So you want to have, again, that GMB listing claim, fill out every little thing about it. There's FAQs now. Put your hours down. Make sure that link to your website where the love of God is there. I have had so many people that have a website in a GMB and they did not link them. I know people, when they get to the GMBs, it's really great because when on our phone, we can push the call button, we can go straight to the website. It's so user-friendly. So you want to fill everything out to make sure it's as easy for them to get to as possible.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it's all about reviews.
Talk to us about that.
I was like, you want to get into the teeth pulling side?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to reviews, this is another big portion of that local side. So I know with most businesses, it is like pulling teeth to get reviews. It is not fun. It's not easy at all. So what we recommend is, yes, you want to get as many as possible. So the things when it comes down to reviews is print out a list of all the clients you've worked with. So if this is something you want to do yourself, get that list, go through it. So I tell everybody a good goal, get at least 1 review a month. Most companies that aren't like restaurants or, very popular places such as that, they get them more often, but most local businesses do not get them super often. So try to at least get that. The idea with this is if you have 100 customers you have helped in your last 3 years, and you're saying, okay, I need to get reviews because Brittany told me on Franklin's podcast, I had to get reviews for this Google My Business page. Well, then what I would say is break up. So therefore only you're asking so many of them each week. Do not send out a mass text or a mass email to all of 100 of them with your Google link saying, pretty please leave me a review. Mm-hmm. And the only reason I say that is because if you get too many, too quick, Google will think they are spam and they will remove them and slap your wrist again. So you don't want to go through all that work to lose everything at the end of the day. So if you have 100, reach out to 10. Following week, reach out to the next 10. And you can even spread that out further just based on how many you're getting. you kind of want to make sure that that is spread out as much as possible with it. But if you do have people who you've worked with who are very close to you or who love what you do, who are big advocates, those are the people I would say, send that little direct message to them and just kind of say, hey, I really appreciate having you. Reviews are the biggest way I can see my business growing. I would love if you could say something about me. Would you mind leaving me a star rating and also mentioning in the comments what I did for you? If you don't mind naming the services or, what I did for your business, just give me that side of it. Because the fun part is you can actually SEO Google Reviews.
Yeah.
So if they put in the services that you did, so if they said that you were their business coach, that you're the best business coach they've had in Colorado, or if you were the best commercial attorney that they had in Louisville, Kentucky, those are the things you want to have in there to kind of cheat the system a little bit. And again, make sure you respond to those reviews. So whether or not that you think they put a lot of effort into it, respond to them.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the funny story I have is my last name is Murphy. Who's not heard of Murphy's Law? Everyone has. So when it comes down to that, how I actually shop is I look at the reviews and I look just for the 1-star ratings. I just want to know the worst that could happen because I'm assuming that's a situation in which I will fall upon. So if I can see someone had a bad experience and they rant, rave, say everything that happened, and then the business owner gets on and says, we're so sorry about your experience. Please call us directly here or send an email here and we'll correct the situation. That is all I need to see at the end of the day to go ahead and call that business, because now I know they're going to handle it and they're going to handle it professionally. Now, whether or not that reviewer called, whether or not they resolved it correctly, who knows, but they gave me the impression from a business standpoint, they're very professional and they will take care of me as much as possible. So that's really why we want to make sure that we're responding to those reviews as well. It's not just there for SEO. It's there for that whole conversion, the whole buying journey. So I tell everybody, if you had to buy a $10,000 new roof and you had to pay out of pocket, how much research would you do on the company you're about to hand 10 grand to?
Yeah.
All the places you're checking on them, you need to look internally. Do you have those for your own services? You might think that you're a more legit business than a roofing company, which I get it. There's a lot of fly-by-night companies out there in the home service trades, but you might know you're legit and you do great work, but you need to make sure you're expressing that to everybody who lands on your website because they don't know you yet. So everything creating, all this builds in that better impression with it all.
So the other thing that comes to my mind to ask Brittany is to talk about people who pay for those top slots on the Google search page, the advertising.
Yes.
How can somebody who doesn't have a huge budget or deep pockets compete on that front page like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and a lot of times, and that's kind of why when we started this, is SEO something that's dying? It's just something that's getting more competitive. So when it comes down to that, what we're working with a lot of clients on that are in those competitive industries, we're finding those questions that people are asking that their competitors aren't answering just yet. So those expensive AdWords, it's because they just want to rank for a plumber, Denver. They want to rank for those big terms, and that's 20, 30, 40 bucks a click. Just a click does not mean a converted person calling you. Just a click on that ad can cost that much with it. So you obviously want to create content to rank for those things. And if you don't want to pay for those words, then we got to hone it in. We got to niche down a little bit more. So that might just mean looking for different things that you're doing and just making sure you're more specific. If anyone wants to Google it, it's just called long tail keyword research. So that long tail just means it's a few words in a row. And usually that means it's a sentence structure and someone's asking a question. I would look up those and I would answer those questions. And if you wanted to, let's just say you can't rank for it immediately, but it's getting a lot of search volume and there's some big guys up there. Well, you can actually look to see what cost per click is for those type of articles. So it's if how to fix a running toilet, is the blog post you want to rank for, because that once people read this, they're going to want to call your business instead of doing it themselves. Then you can maybe run an ad for that. Yeah. It's kind of a little bit of a different strategy with it, but a lot of times all these different things you can do kind of help compete with it. But that's where we just say, think of all the different things you're doing. Look at your competitors. So if their blog does not have any of these answers to the questions that you're thinking about writing answers to, that's a good indicator that you can potentially rank for those things. and you're going to bring in more power, more traffic to eventually kind of increase your authority for those bigger keywords.
We haven't gotten into things like tags, labels, meta descriptions. So we could probably spend a whole other hour talking about those things. But one of the things that I keep hearing over and over and over is that Google is really starting to pay a lot more attention to the intention of the searcher. And that takes into consideration the question that they're asking, or perhaps the situation that's driving the question. It's like, my car is rattling weird and I don't know what to do about it, kind of a thing. And so how important is it to put that kind of phrasing into like meta descriptions on a blog post?
Well, for the meta description side, so meta descriptions don't have too much of an SEO pull.
Okay.
In a sense, it's a good conversion area. So you want to stay what's in the article, so people are more apt to click on your article. The title tag above it, the link they would actually click, that's where we would make sure that's all SEO keywords as much as possible with it when it comes to that side. The only thing I would do before you actually write that whole post is put that question in, check out the other blog posts that are ranking for it, because how Google's ranking that top 10, that's what they think the intent is.
Yeah.
So if we say that if we're a product-based business and we're trying to ask a question or write a blog post about that, double check yourself on what blog posts are popping up, because you might type in something and all it is just shopping results, because Google thinks that the keywords you typed in, the intent is to get shopping. Now, if you're not trying to make that product page rank with that term, then it's not a good intent match, because we're helping them that way with it. So yes, you do want to make sure that everything as far as the SEO side, the meta tag or the meta description, all that's optimized. But again, that won't make it rank if the actual content of that page doesn't match what Google thinks the intent is. So I tell everybody, type what phrase you think you're trying to rank for, look at the top 10, just open them all up. And if they all look like how you thought you'd write yours, well, then write yours like that and pull all the ideas that you have from those.
Yeah.
And no need to recreate the wheel. See what your competitors are doing. Oh, okay, they talked about who, they talked about why, what, they don't talk about how or the process. Okay, I should probably include that in mine so I can make mine better. And that's what Google's rewarding, is better, more created, resourceful content. So if you're making improvements on what's out there, they're really rewarding you more at the end of the day. With everything else we talked about, you have to do those as well. But that would be at the end of the day, just making sure that what you type isn't a waste of time, because Google will see it as relevant to the intent of the article. And that's a very recent change, Franklin.
Yeah.
Very recent.
I just keep hearing about it over and over and over again. And it's one of those things like, okay, I've got to change some things about what I do.
Yes, I have many written articles for my blog that afterwards I looked at it and I was like, I did not even check the intent of what they were looking for. They were not looking for an answer. They were actually looking for a product, or they were looking for location listings. And Google, every time they change the algorithm, it does change as far as what you do. So that's kind of why I like to tell everybody, if you focus on getting those quality backlinks and you create quality content, you will ride through almost any algorithm change, because you're doing what Google guidelines say, is you're creating good resources for their viewers to find. If you start to cut back on that, if you're getting crap out there, Google will not reward you. And that's what every algorithm change is all about, is making sure that they're giving the best quality resources at the end of the day. So EAT is the new phrase that everyone's talking about: expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. So if you don't have any EAT on your website, then you're not going to get rankings as quickly as you need. So that's why I tell as well, talk about yourself, create a good about page, make sure you have an author page on your website. But in the day, if you're talking about your products and services, you're mentioning, well, I'm a professional attorney that solves these issues, so you're really creating expertise with it on that side of it. All those things are kind of what will really feed in when you kind of do like an ongoing monthly blog post for yourself. Like those are the things you're trying to create to build that trustworthiness in Google's eyes, alongside with anyone who finds your website and hopefully buys from you as well.
Well, Brittany, I've got a dozen more questions and we're out of time.
What happens every time after I speak with someone.
Well, I'm hoping that you'll be willing to come back, because the questions that are starting to come up now are a little bit more detailed, and they're a little bit more, probably more subtle than people are ready for. But you've just gotten my curiosity started. And this has been a fantastic presentation And I've been helped by it, and I know that everybody who hears this is going to be helped by it. If someone wanted to get in touch with you next, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Well, I would say the best way is if everything I said made some sense or nonsense, and you either have a website or you don't just yet, I would honestly say go to our website. We have a free strategy session that we offer. So it's free 30 minutes. You'll sit down with me via computer. I'll audit your website. I'll audit any marketing that you have and kind of help give you a strategy on what you could do SEO wise. And so that's just going to onethingmarketing.net and then free strategy session button. You can sign up right there and it'll take you directly to my calendar. And this is what I enjoy doing every day, is getting to see and getting to help. So this is nothing bad if you want to do it. If you have dumb questions, that's what this 30 minutes is for. So even Franklin, if you have more, we can and kind of look at that. But that's what we offer, just to kind of help educate as much as possible. And if it sounds good, I can make a proposal for you to work with us. But again, I want to give you as many brainstorm ideas if you either want to work internally or just hire out for someone to write some content for you. I'm really happy to help you work with whatever point in the journey you are in.
Well, Brittany, this has been fantastic, and I can't thank you enough for bringing your time and your expertise to us today. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we finish up?
I would say thank you for having me on. And if anyone tells you they would like that a little bit more technical SEO Q&A, I'd be happy to come back and give you some more insights on it.
I'd love to have you come back. That, like I said, you just got me started, and I could go another hour easily.
Well, this is what I do all day.
Excellent, Brittany. So everyone, this is Brittany Murphy, and she has been telling us all about the things that we need to consider to make our websites more SEO friendly. And again, onethingmarketing.net is correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, that's how you find Brittany. And thanks again, Brittany.
Thank you, Franklin.
People who work alone aren't antisocial, at least not most of us. If people think you're weird because you don't want to grow a big company and you'd rather spend most of your time working by yourself, you're just hanging around the wrong people. Your Own Best Company has a Facebook group that you're invited to join right now. We understand the urge to close the door, let your imagination run wild, and stay there until your creative impulse runs its course. We also understand the features and challenges that go along with running a business to support our solo flight lifestyles. Joining the group is free, and it's as easy as clicking the link in the channel description. So go there now and just join the group. Want to hear more where this came from? Subscribe to Your Own Best Company on your favorite podcast app or on the Franklin Taggart Coaching and Consulting YouTube channel. To get in touch with Franklin, send an email to yobc@franklintaggart.com. Thanks for listening.